Hey everybody, it's Saturday wrap up, but this week I'm gonna do a special retreat review edition because I went on a retreat with my RCIA class. Definitely it was a retreat in every sense of the word. Retreating from the world, retreating from other things that happen in life. And I've never been to a retreat where it's completely focused on growing your faith and completely focused on self-reflection and all of that. There wasn't any icebreakers or any fun and games or anything like that. It was straight to the point. It was serious, and it was definitely an experience that I will remember for a very long time. So a passage that we went through was in Luke 24, starting from verse 13, and this is a story in Emmaus where Jesus appears to two disciples after he died. He talks to them, they don't recognize him, he breaks bread with them, and then they recognize him, and then he disappears. So that's the gist of the story. And what I got really out of it, these are the thoughts that I have, so I'm just going to read them. It is only by God revealing himself that we may know him, not by our own power, but by God. We need to be willing and ready to share our faith and tell others, for that is how the Lord reveals himself and works with us. And then we had a reflection, and then other passages were shared, and this is what else I wrote. So this is about taking up our cross daily. When we take that cross, I noticed that there's no body because there's triumph there. So we bring the hope and resurrection with us, as well as the story of our conversion and our faith with us. Taking up our cross also shows the suffering and a reminder of our own imminent death that we may have had to suffer without the redeeming sacrifice of Christ. When we take up our cross daily, we are not only reminded of our daily suffering for Christ, but of his eternal glory to come as it preludes our own resurrection and body that is to come. So living as disciples, people may not recognize this, just like in Emmaus, but it is not for you to show them, but for the time to come for Christ to reveal himself through your own death to sin and resurrection to live. While we were breaking bread together, I had this thought of the feeding of the 5,000. Now, breaking bread and fish to feed and satisfy hunger can only be done by the providence of God, just like in that miracle. Just as our soul and ability to discern can only be made through the revelation of Christ in the story of Emmaus. Another thought has to do with this week's reading, which was on emptying yourself. So Jesus emptied himself. What I can think of is when I was teaching Sunday school, I really had to empty myself, and I had to gather so much more. As I was emptying myself, there was nothing to fill the void. So I had to go learn some more and pass it down. And I alluded this to the same thing as the Hoover Dam. I think it's the Hoover Dam that withholds water from the Grand Canyon. Now, before the dam was built, the water along the Grand Canyon was pretty shallow, and the sun was on it, so it was really warm water that flowed through the river. It was teeming with life. But after the dam was built, it withdrew the water, and because of how deep the dam is and the amount of water that it has, it became very cold at the bottom, and that's where the dam releases the water. So all the previous life that was there is now gone, because I think it's something like 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the temperature it used to be. When you don't let life flow out of you, when you don't pass down the things that you learn or the love that you receive, you withdraw life from people. You are no longer an entity that allows life to grow and allows fruit to grow from things that you do. And so that reflects my journey to Catholicism, especially that somebody was mentioning, whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. In a way, I've pretty much lost my Protestant life. Very few people from my church will associate or just bother to ask me questions or hang out with me. In fact, there's only been one person that's contacted me out of their own will just to have a coffee and just to sit down, and nobody else from the church bothered to call me, not even the pastor. None of them mentioned anything. None of them even bothered to care what happened to me, even though I've been gone since September. Nobody really found out till like last month, which is alarming to me, but I've lost that. It's not important to me because I found a new community of Christ to belong with, and one where I really am reflecting and discovering myself and who I am in Christ. And the last thing is just a thought on an exercise that we did. We had some nails and we picked it up, kind of representing the nail that Christ gave for us, and then we dropped it into a metal bucket and it made a really loud clang noise. My thought was that God used the elements to create the world and create us. But when we have the power to do such a thing, we take the elements and we kill God, literally. So those are the big thoughts that came to me while I was doing the reflecting at the retreat. Tell you about the retreat, a rundown of what happened. So we started with praying together and worship time, and then we moved over to the reading and the reflection, really long reflection, about 2 hours reflection. And then somebody had a cup of stones where, of course, there's some gaps in it because of the air in between, and poured water into it. And the stones signified every aspect of our life, but it's missing. And are we willing to let the water of Christ touch every part of our lives and be involved in every part of our life? After lunch, we had the exercise with the nails in the bucket, and then a little bit of prayer time and retreat time. And then we received the Our Father, and then that was the end of the retreat. So that pretty much took up the whole day. Definitely fruitful and fulfilling. So I'll leave you with some of the footage from the retreat. So thanks for watching, and see you soon.
I am the resurrection, so that my humble prayers will be said with great love and for your glory.
That it is an unwarranted gift of grace to
My fears relieve. Voices, open the gates before him, lift up your voices.
When Satan said, if you are the Son of God, in other words, he wants Jesus to prove that he is the Son of God by doing some wonder. He refuses. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.